Ladies and gentlemen, it is That Way Cool Wrestling Show. My name is Danny J. We are right here on the DJB Productions Network. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave some comments. It is Royal Rumble weekend. We are so excited. We wanted to bring this show out to you today. We have a bunch of shows coming out based on the Royal Rumble, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. But first, let's bring up who we got on this show. We got my man, Mad Mark Lindsay.
Good morning, everybody.
Live and in color, we got Mad Mark Lindsay. We have my man B Steady himself, Bad Bob Stefford.
What's up, everyone? There's a new enforcer in town. He is me, and I am the Celtic Casanova. Ready to talk about the Royal Rumble today? Hit me up on Instagram at @B_steady. Let's go, gentlemen.
What a great time we got. We got a great cast here. And guys, we are so excited. It's a Royal Rumble. It's one of the best times of the year, aside from WrestleMania for the WWE fans. Royal Rumble is definitely the other show that we want to watch. Today we're talking about the Royal Rumble, the stars that it made. There were so many different WWE superstars that came out of the Royal Rumble and that were, I don't want to say nowhere, but they were at that mid-card level, and this was their big elevation, their big boost into prime time. And there's so many stars that came out of the Royal Rumble, became mega stars. For me personally, I guess the biggest one I always come across is like Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels made the Royal Rumble work for him. He became such a mega star. And then he went on to become Mr. WrestleMania, as they like to call him, and stuff like that. But, you know, in order to get there, the Royal Rumble was that big elevation. It's like, hey, climb this mountain so we can see who you are, because we want to see who we want to elevate. For me, Shawn Michaels was a big guy that came out of the Royal Rumble.
I always thought it was cool when he was in the Royal Rumble. I used to love when he came in. I'm a Brett guy through and through. First off, let me just state that I'm with the Hitman, a Heartbreak Kid. Don't care about him. But whenever Shawn was in the Rumble, I always thought it was cool because he's the first person I ever saw skin the cat. You know, You get thrown over the top rope, you hook on the top, and you throw your legs up backwards over the top. I just thought that was the coolest thing. And I remember one of the first times I had to myself where I was alone in a wrestling ring. I tried to do that, and I just splatted on the concrete. It wasn't for me. Surely there's some sort of magic trick where somebody throws the legs up. Has nothing to do with my lack of athleticism. But,
yes.
You know, stars for me in the Rumble, Stone Cold Steve Austin, hands down. Yep. He's got 3 Royal Rumble victories under his belt. He was always just a big star. There was that one Rumble, I think it was it 99 with him and McMahon? They told the Austin McMahon story throughout the whole Rumble. You know, that was a great Rumble to me just for that storytelling. And there was nothing bigger at the time than Austin McMahon. So for me, if I'm going to have to say a big star for the Rumble, it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. Mark?
What about you, Mark?
I kind of have 2 stars. I go a little old school. I go a little bit more modern. You know, in 1992, the World Wrestling Federation was in this state of change. McMahon was about to go on trial for steroid use. A lot of the guys with the big muscular builds were leaving. Hogan was retired. Savage was on commentary. Ultimate Warrior gone. Sid Justice gone. So they had to change the mentality. And what ended up happening was Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels kind of taking over. But to bridge that gap, Yokozuna. And in 93, Yokozuna wins the match, the first time a Rumble gave the winner a world title match at WrestleMania. And Yokozuna, I don't think he gets enough credit for carrying the World Wrestling Federation from 93 to about 95.
I agree with you.
I wasn't the biggest Yokozuna fan. Let me just say that, but I'm calling it like I see it. Yeah. He carried that company and was dominantly their world champion for about a year and a half. And more modern, this is going to kind of be backwards. This is like the the Usual Suspects type of predict. And that was the year 2014 when Roman Reigns and the Shield made their debut in the Rumble. And that night, Daniel Bryan did not participate in the Royal Rumble.
Right.
And that made him a star because it was that moment when not only the Royal Rumble audience, but every Raw since then, the audience took over the show and they forced Daniel Bryan into the WrestleMania 30 match And, let's not discount the fact that had Daniel Bryan been in the Rumble and got tossed out, it would have been, oh, that sucks. We got our guy and he lost. By them not putting him in, the fans took over Raw, took over SmackDown, forced their way to get their way, and Daniel Bryan, the star of Daniel Bryan, was born.
Yeah, Mark, I was at that 2015 Royal Rumble. I took my kids and a friend of mine. We went and saw that live. We were there in Philly. And let me tell you, I've never been, I'm a little bit younger, so I was never there for the early shows in wrestling where heat was a real thing.
Yeah.
The heat was very, very real that night, to the point where, like, Rey Mysterio, the babyface of the year, or the decade, or whatever you want to call him, never a heel in his career. Rey Mysterio came out at number 30, and the boos would have blown the roof off that arena to the point, like, we realized it wasn't Daniel Bryan, and we didn't want to see anything else happen that night.
Right.
And afterwards, they brought The Rock out. They tried to, get a little goodwill with the crowd. Everybody booed The Rock. The Rock was visibly pissed in the ring. Leaving that building that night, I kept the kids close to me. People were throwing shit in the parking lot. People were standing by the wrestlers' entrance and throwing stuff at cars.
Mm-hmm.
I watched somebody launch a, one of those chairs they give away, like
the
ringside seats with the printed cushion. Yeah. I watched somebody launch that at one of the Usos in the parking lot, and it was.
You bring up a great point.
Stage left.
You bring up a great point, because I was referring to the year before, which was in Pittsburgh, with Daniel Bryan, not because he was a member of the Wyatt family or something. I don't remember what the deal was.
You were talking about, that's the one, Blue Tista one.
Yes. Yes. But you're right. The same thing happened the next year in Philadelphia, and the same result happened. I mean, the fans forced Daniel Bryan to be a star. And it's funny because in 2014, the one I was referring to, he gets the big WrestleMania moment, which lasts about a month. Then I think he got his first concussion or whatever the storyline was. He wasn't a long reigning champion.
Right.
And then by the time he came back, the fans wanted him to be reinserted in that top role. And Vince is like, no, we got other plans for you. And the Philadelphia faithful made it happen again.
Give him Roman.
Philly.
By the way, Roman in 2014, had Roman won, because Roman was against Blue Tista, is the finals of that match. Had Roman won the 2014 Rumble, I don't think anybody would have objected to that. And I think Reigns could have been a bigger star a year earlier. But it was a fact. It was a fact that they hosed Daniel Bryan, and the same old guy won. The Blue Tista.
Let me tell you something though, and everybody can boast about their own city, per se and stuff like that. But Philadelphia, there's a reason why we don't get a lot of pay-per-views. There's a reason why we don't. I mean, what we're saying is God honest truth. This is not opinion. This is fact. I've been to many wrestling shows, NWA, WWF, where they never get out of the crowd what they want. Okay, the crowd controls that show. And let me tell you something. It's not like it's a dead show. It's not like there's no pops. There's pops, but not the way they think it's going to be.
It's a very different crowd for pay-per-views.
We want what we want, and that's the end of it. And otherwise, get out of our city. And that's the way it is, and we don't care. Now, I want to talk about, because you guys are going to with a more modern day. I want to talk about my one modern memory of the Royal Rumble being in Philly. But there's also another Royal Rumble memory I want to bring up, which is another grand superstar.
That was last show, Dan. We're on Stars now.
No, we're on Stars. We're on Stars. But I was in Philly for the one, and this was the one where Chris Benoit was entrance number 1, and he went through all 30 competitors, and it was great to see Benoit get this, because Benoit at that time, we seen him like kind of struggle in WCW for a moment. We see him go over to WWE and like, all right, well, he's still doing mid-card stuff. He's not really doing what we think he's worthy of doing or whatever the case is. And
he's not a murderer yet, so.
Yeah.
We're not going to go there, Mr.
I don't
Lindsay.
know how you can't, but anyway.
Yeah, we're not going to go there, Mr. Lindsay. You cannot deny the guy's talent as a professional wrestler. And he goes in there and wins. And my biggest thing was not so much, it was shadowed because Benoit at that time, one of my favorite wrestlers. And I'm like, oh, that's great. He won. But I was overshadowed by a certain Zach Gowen, who, if memory serves anybody, that's the
I thought you were
one-legged.
going to say Drew Carey for a minute.
No. Zach
Because he was
Gowen.
in that Rumble.
Was he really? Yeah, he was. But no, Zach Gowen, who is the one-legged wrestler, who was kind of famous in TNA for a minute, went to WWE to have him get thrown down the steps by Brock Lesnar and shit like that. But he goes in there, and I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. I'm like at the back. I'm in like nosebleed section, right? And I'm like, you have to have both feet touch the ground to be eliminated. Zach Gowen only has 1 foot, so therefore he is not eliminated and should be the rightful winner of the Royal Rumble, right? Had I been a booker, I would have been in WWE format, have Zach Gowen come out on Raw the next night and say, with a lawyer, saying this stipulation, and I should have my shot at WrestleMania because I was never defeated in the Royal Rumble. They never did this. They really dropped the ball on using this handicapped kid to its potential, because that would have been an amazing feat. We were talking about this offline. Either A, at the next pay-per-view before WrestleMania, he loses that shot, just have a little bit of contention, or B, let him go to WrestleMania and it's a 3-way and he wrestles in the 3-way. I think that would have been amazing. I'm not saying give him the title, at WrestleMania, but I'm saying do that shot so that the fans could say, oh, that's one-legged son of a bitch, because, if it was Philly would be like, fuck him, like whatever, I don't care, I'll cut his other leg off, whatever. But like, that would have been a great thing for me. I think that would have been awesome. That year, I was like, they dropped the ball. I don't know why. But going into another star that was made, go back to a Royal Rumble, where a certain Bret the Hitman Hart, who at that point, just recently, they lost the World Tag Team titles as the Hart Foundation. And then out of nowhere, and I was actually surprised back then. Now, granted, I was a kid, so I didn't really know the business like I do now. But like, I was surprised that Bret Hart wins the Royal Rumble. But then as soon as like Bad News Brown comes up and gives him the ghetto blaster right in the back of the head and takes him out, and that set up that big feud between Bret and Brown, and now you're established Bret Hart as a singles wrestler and stuff like that. What a move that was, because let's face it, Mark, and you can attest to this, this was the point in WWF history where the big guys were starting to move aside just a little bit, and these smaller, more reasonably sized guys were starting to get a little bit of shine. And
Dan,
until then, they weren't doing it.
I'm sorry to do this to you, but this is, again, a WrestleMania 4 match that you're saying, and not a Royal Rumble.
Oh, was it? I don't know.
Yes.
But
So
what that did do was help propel Bret Hart to a
Yes.
Royal Rumble victory in the year when him and Luger had their feet hit at the same
right,
exact time.
94.
That's
94.
that
There you go.
That's a teammate right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Not this.
I just didn't want the negative comments below on the YouTube channel that is this guy Danny J even know what he's talking about.
I'm just waiting here to put a bow tie on it, and I keep.
What did Nick
trying to
Bockwinkel
go
come in
into
there?
a dissertation about Skinner.
I want to see Nick Bockwinkel. No, but
Yeah, maybe this year.
yeah, this year, but we'll dig him up.
But one last star for me in the Royal Rumble that I think really over the years has helped keep his stock alive, Kofi Kingston. Because every year, like I always like it's something my kids get excited about. I get excited about, like, what's Kofi going to do in the Rumble? Because he always does some sort of, him and Morrison are always doing some sort of crazy parkour, or Kofi walking on his hands.
That was amazing.
Ring, Big E catches him, throws him back in. Like, there's always some shenanigans, and I think Kofi's hurt right now, so we're not going to get that this year. So I'm wondering if Morrison's going to be the guy to give us the quote unquote Kofi spot.
I'd like to
he's a big parkour guy. Yeah,
I'd like to piggyback up with something Bob said earlier. 96, the NWO is made in WCW, and WBF is kind of reeling. They're trying to create new stars, and Bob had mentioned how Austin won 3 Royal Rumbles, and I go back to 97 when that's the first pay-per-view, or the first major pay-per-view after Survivor Series, when Austin faced off against Bret Hart.
Right.
And if you recall the Rumble of '97, the Undertaker, Big Van Vader, Steve Austin, and Bret Hart were the last four in the ring. Austin gets eliminated by Bret Hart, but the referees don't see it because they're taking care of something else at ringside. Right. Austin slides back in and wins the Rumble, and then that sets up the Fatal Four. So we had mentioned earlier that, you know, these winners faced off at WrestleMania, but that set up Austin versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13, which, you know, again, the Survivor Series, if you go back and watch on the network, that Survivor Series match between Austin and Bret was really good. Yeah. But you could see that Austin wasn't, the character of Austin wasn't really there yet. There was really no doubt that Hart was going to win that match. Right. But at WrestleMania 13, you had Austin and Hart do the double turn, and Austin leaves being the biggest star in wrestling in both promotions. I mean, he just becomes that guy overnight. So that 97 Rumble really set the path for Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes. Yes. Who has the record right now for most wins? Mark,
Hogan has 3. Austin has 3.
Hogan has 3? I guess so, yeah. Yeah.
But Hogan, I thought there was someone that had more than 3 wins. Isn't there more than 3 wins? Isn't somebody had more than 3 wins though?
I don't think so.
We could hit the Google machine.
Let's hit that Google machine. Get on that Google machine.
Beep boop boop.
Google, yeah, beep boop.
All right, vamp while he's looking up the.
Yeah. So getting back to Bret Hart.
So it made a start. It made a start another way. I think it was a 2000 Royal Rumble. Taka Michinoku getting eliminated. You guys remember this? I forget who grabbed him by the back of the head and just heaved him over the top rope. He hit face first on the floor, and they showed the replay a million times. One of the most painful eliminations I've ever seen. I think he had a broken.
Well, the one that keeps coming up, and I'm
Bushwhacker Luke.
No, not that one. No, not that one. Who was the guy that was coming in and he slid underneath the ring?
That was again, Dan. It was not a Royal Rumble. It was at the Saudi Arabia.
Was that Saudi Arabia?
Rumble of all time.
Well, there you go. It had Royal Rumble on the title. Titus O'Neil slid in there. So give it an honorable mention. They had Royal Rumble on the title. Shut up.
Yeah, the official word.
WCW Green.
Yeah, what's the official? I'm sorry.
Austin does hold the record with 3.
Really? Just 3?
Yes. 3. Hogan only had 2, and 6 others have 2. It was Hogan with 2, Michaels with 2, Triple H with 2, Batista with 2, Cena with 2, and Orton with 2, and then the rest, of course, are one-time winners.
That just boggles my mind that those numbers are so low, considering how long the Royal Rumble has been going around, and these stars that we're talking about, like Batista and Orton, stuff like that. These are stars that are headlining WrestleMania almost like every year.
Yeah, the Royal Rumble's got to be a catalyst to put somebody new over. Like you can't. It
should
the same guys over every year.
This is WWE. We're talking about that. That's what I'm trying to say.
They did that with AJ Styles a few years ago. I mean, AJ makes his debut in the Royal Rumble. That crowd goes nuts.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's the truth, and stuff like that. Let me tell you something, guys. There's so many stars that are coming out of the Royal Rumble. Let me tell you something. Let me break it down for you. Now, there's so many stars that came out of the Royal Rumble, and they go on to WrestleMania. And I would say, would you guys say that maybe the Rumble really is more of a star maker than WrestleMania?
No.
You wouldn't go there? I mean, WrestleMania is the grand stage, and the WrestleMania is the reward. I look at it as a reward for doing that. But you don't think the Rumble is what's really making or breaking somebody?
No.
And the reason I say that is because I'm considering that the WrestleMania is the restart of the year. That's the accumulation of the year, and then after that, we're starting over again. That's always been.
I think the Royal Rumble is you have all, you know. Hey, your wife's Italian. She makes gravy or sauce, whatever she calls it.
Yeah.
You have everything. The Royal Rumble is everything's mixed together.
Yeah.
And then you have to let it simmer. That's what the Rumble is. And then, of course, WrestleMania is eating. Yes, we're going to eat this. That's
a good analogy. That's a very good analogy.
It used to be that way.
You're cooking at the Rumble.
You used to be able to go into this weekend and have a good idea of what's headed towards WrestleMania. But you look, there's no long-term booking anymore. They're booking by the seat of their pants. And there's nothing. I was talking about this with my brother the other day, and there's just nothing going in. Like, you don't even have like your 4 or 5 guys that you could pick now. You know, this will lead into our next part about predictions for this weekend. But they don't even have those guys established going in. Like, there's 1 or 2 guys, but really it should be an event where, like, you're not going to put your Humberto Carrillos and you're not going to put your Angel Garzas and your people, or your Ricochets, your Mustafa Ali's. Everybody, every 30 guys should be 30 of your best and biggest who actually have a legitimate shot of winning. There's nobody that should come in the ring and be like, all right, well, who's going to eliminate him?
Right. Well, Bob, to your point
from
earlier,
a psychology standpoint.
Right.
To your point earlier about Buddy Murphy, you know, even if they pull the trigger and somebody like that wins the match, you still have, what is it, Elimination Chamber? You still have like
the middle
time
ground
between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania for something to change. And, oh, I challenge you for that spot at WrestleMania. So, like,
yeah, I mean, it's not set in stone, is what you're saying.
Right.
That's correct. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you have the roadblock in February, and then in March you get back on the fast lane before you stop at the Elimination Chamber, and then you can hit WrestleMania. Like, I mean, and it pretty much it becomes so watered down over the years that like you never know. Like, the Royal Rumble winner should stand unless there's some sort of schmozzy finish, which is being teased for tomorrow. So that's another thing we can get into in our predictions portion.
Yeah,
but like it should be something that's held sacred. Like, all right, you're guaranteed this is what you're getting. Build that story and build it good for 3 months going into Mania or 2 months, whatever it is.
No, you're right. You're right. Absolutely, guys. We've seen so many stars come out of it. Hopefully, some newer stars are going to come out of it as well. The young talent that's taken over the wrestling business has so much, and I just wonder if, and we'll talk about this in predictions. Can the Royal Rumble match stay in time? Can it stick around? Can it be what it is in comparison to the wrestling styles of today? Because I think that we have a lot of guys that love flying over the top rope out to the floor. They can't keep it in the ring, but meanwhile, that's the one match where they have to. So we're going to talk about that in the next one as well with our predictions, because you mentioned a lot of guys like Ricochet and Garza, and these are guys that love to go flying all over the place, but you guys stay put. If you're going to win.
It's not a match for their strong suit.
It's not, and it looks like they're getting overloaded with those types of performers. So I wonder how that's going to like shape the game up a little bit too. Guys, hit that notification bell down below. Hit the notification bell. Hit the subscribe button that's down there. I think it's the other way around. And then leave those comments. There you go. And then leave those comments. Make sure you check us out on all the social medias. We are on Facebook at That Way Cool Wrestling Show. For Mad Mark Lindsay, for Be Steady himself, Bob Stefford. My name is Danny J. We will see you at the matches. Goodbye, everybody.
The proceeding was produced by DJB Productions. Go to www.thatwaycoolwrestlingshow.com.